don't know me, I'm a member here. This crazy, messy, beautiful congregation here at St. Mark's. I currently live in Nashville. I'm working toward a master's of theological studies. Yeah, it's been exciting. I won't be preaching on politics per se, but I do want to highlight a message that I think is very important and that I think should hopefully give you pause in your day-to-day interactions with other people, and most importantly, yourself. This was kind of a tough sermon for me to write. The last one that I did I pretty much wrote that like 4 months before I actually got up to preach it. This one, I kind of pushed against it, and I was like, nah, you're going to do this one. So as I said last time, if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, if you want to talk about anything, I don't have to be at work until 8 a.m. tomorrow, so I will stay and talk as long as you need me to. For those who know me pretty well, I volunteer for my fraternity, Sigma Phi Epsilon, or SIGA for short. It's a very important aspect of my life, and I've done so for the past 5 years. And my role is to make sure that these young men are getting the most from their college experience, and that their fraternal experience will give them a well-rounded development that will help them for life after college. It's easy on paper to do that, and I say that because I was the same young, rambunctious kid that I was working to mold. We strive to live a certain set of values, and those were crafted by our founders in 1901, and it's a world that seems very far away, and kind of bridging that gap is something I never anticipated doing. It's a 115-year gap come November 1st, and I have to make relevant the message of our founders and ultimately the message that I'm going to give today. Of the 12 founders, 6 of them would go on to be members of the clergy in some shape or form. So Scripture was very important to them, and it should be very important to me. I'm going to share with you Scripture that was used in a passage known as the Jenkins lesson, named for our founder, Carter Ashton Jenkins. And in the passage, this isn't secret stuff, by the way, I'm not going to get like blackballed. This is all public knowledge. In this passage, Brother Jenkins falls asleep. He's been studying Greek, and he falls asleep, and he dreams of a world in chaos. People fighting against each other. Churches are empty. Learning institutions are empty. And he's guided by an angel. And he wakes back up, and then he falls back asleep, and he sees a world of joy and love. And he asks the angel, how has this happened? What has led to this peace? And the angel points to him, Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 through 39. And so it's that passage that I'll now look at verses preceding and following for context. And it's a passage we all have heard many, many times, but I hope to shed a little bit of a different angle. It'll be on the screen. We also have pew Bibles. And you can use your smartphone. When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Just a side note, the Greek for test is that same that testing that Satan did in the wilderness. So sorry, lawyers, I don't know what that says about lawyers. Anyway. Teacher, which commandment of the law is the greatest? He said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. This is the word of God for the people of God. So, many of us have heard this all our lives, at least some shape or form of it. This golden rule is an ancient thing. Before Jesus even said it, Confucius had said it, and all the world religions have some form of the golden rule. And I have to make that make sense to 18 to 22-year-old young men. To be honest, I didn't realize how I never fully understood it myself. I'm really sorry. I said that out loud. And I thought about this during my move to Nashville. I was sitting in my car driving, and for some reason I've been thinking about this passage. And it appears unbelievably easy. In the Jenkins lesson that I was telling you about, it's called a simple teaching. So I'm going to pull out my old school Baptist vocabulary and call hogwash on that. Let it be known that I have an issue with the golden rule. At least how we interpret the golden rule. At least how we think about the golden rule. If we can just treat others how we want to be treated, the world will be this shiny, happy place. We can hold hands, we can sing kumbaya. But here's the problem. And here's what ultimately grinds my gears. We do not know how to treat ourselves. We do not know how to love ourselves. I've been thinking about that a lot. Matter of fact, I thought about this the other day. Anna and I discussed this when she was in Nashville over a year ago. That this has kind of been my calling in figuring out how this works for me and my journey. We wake up on a daily basis, many of us dreading the day ahead, dreading interaction with our coworkers. We all have that one. And I think more often than not, we wake up dreading that first look in the mirror. We absolutely pick ourselves apart. We see every blemish. We see every scar. We see something not beautiful enough. And before we know it, we turn that inward. We're not a good enough spouse. We're not a good enough friend. We're not a good enough employee. We're not a good enough churchgoer. So it absolutely makes sense that we turn that judgment to other people. If we have no problem saying it to ourselves, what makes us think we have any problem saying it to someone else? We absolutely, physically, emotionally, and spiritually destroy other people because we do it to ourselves. And this has to stop. Especially in this nation, in this time, it has to stop. So I want to remind you all of a passage of Scripture. So God created humankind in His image. In the image of God, He created humankind. So God created humankind in His image. In the image of God, He created humankind. Why do any of us look at the image of God every morning and tear it to shreds? Is it not good enough for you, for us, for me? And it's difficult, I know this, because I struggle with it myself. But the minute we realize that we are this beautiful act of creation, we can start loving ourselves. And then we can love others. And part of loving ourselves is feeding our spirit, mind, and body with things that truly nourish us. Do we check social media the first thing in the morning? Guilty. Do we check social media first thing in the morning that is shown to lead to depression? Are we feeding our bodies the right things? Are we exercising at the gym from a positive place or a place of, I've got to look good so these other people think I look good? Are our bodies not a temple? What are our temples for? And what do we feed our spirits? Are we telling ourselves on a constant daily basis that we're not good enough for God? So I ask you to take stock of your day. What's there? What needs to be removed? What needs to be added? I can't make your daily routine, but I can hopefully put that in your brain so that you can at least just think about it. And once we start seeing the beauty of ourselves, we should then be able to see that in others. And it may be hard for us to see the image and likeness of God in other people, because sometimes other people hurt us. But here's something to think about. It's likely someone's hurting me too. I've worked for the YMCA for nearly 6 years. And I interact with people pretty much on a daily basis. And for the majority of the time, it's a pleasant experience. But I will never forget, it was the first one I worked at in Clarksville. I was sitting in my office and a woman came in, slammed the door, and cussed me like I'd never been cussed before. And it had something to do with her account, and I let her finish, and I said, I don't know where this came from, probably not the best customer service, but I just looked at her and I said, what has gone so wrong in your day that you feel like it's acceptable to talk to me this way? And she was stunned, and tears just poured out of her eyes. And I learned that she was a single mother, and she needed that money that was accidentally withdrawn from her account. Her ex hadn't come through with child support. She was constantly telling herself she wasn't a good mother, and that she couldn't find a moment's rest. She was tired. And in that moment, she was my neighbor. And I know we as Christians love to wriggle around and deflect and don't want to hold the mirror up to ourselves. And you'll say, but Blake, who's my neighbor? I don't want to talk about me. I want to talk, who's my neighbor? So let's talk about neighbor. How do we define neighbor? It's funny because several chapters back in Matthew, in chapter 5, we're commanded to love our enemy. In Luke, the lawyer follows up with the who is my neighbor question, and Jesus gives the parable of the Good Samaritan. Not here in Matthew. But Jesus is distinct here. This love of enemy is found nowhere in early Judaism. It doesn't even matter who we consider neighbor. This is a command to love everyone, including enemy. This means those who would seek to do us harm, and those who would want to degrade us. And I've heard it said, well, the law was too difficult, and that's why Jesus came, so we could be given grace. This is ridiculous for a number of reasons. First, it's a slandering of Judaism, which Jesus was right smack dab in the middle of. He's a Jewish teacher. Furthermore, Jesus makes the law more difficult. I cannot even think about doing harm to someone, so forget about murdering them. I can't think about committing adultery, much less doing it. The command to love, for me, is a lot harder. I can abstain from eating pork all day long. You want to tell me not to do any work on the Sabbath? I work every Saturday. Sign me up. But to tell me to love someone who has just called me, for example, who has just called me an anti-gay slur, to look them in the eye and say, I love you. That's not easy. And if it is for you, teach me your ways. I'd be glad to learn. Love is tough. Love for others is hard. And love for oneself is harder. And I'm going to be very clear. Love, we're reading the gospel. Love does not build a wall. And that's not a partisan message. That's a gospel message. So I'll wrap up with something a bit personal. I sent Ned a message a while back. I wanted her opinion on what makes a good sermon. And she emphasized making it a bit personal. A little over a year ago, a person I played baseball with passed away. There was an outpouring of love and sadness on social media. And we talked about how wonderful he was, how he was full of love and light. This was not the person that I knew. This person emotionally tormented me every single day. As much as he could. And he tried to break me. And he did. I never played baseball again. And so when he died, I felt numb. I'd never felt anything like that in my entire life. So a few weeks ago, on the anniversary of his passing, remembrance again poured on Facebook. And I had one of the most, I guess it would be a religious experience. It was a gut punch. I feel like it was like Jacob wrestling with God. I realized in that moment that I have been to other people what he's been to me, what he was to me. I've been the tormentor. And I've been the one to make someone's life a living hell. And why? Because hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. And I allowed that negativity from him to consume me, and I put up my own walls and my own defenses, and I did not love myself enough to be a positive beacon for someone else. I cannot reconcile with him, and that's a weird feeling. But I can reconcile with other people that I've hurt, and that's part of my journey. And God forbid I die and someone feel numb to my passing. Several months ago, I watched a TED Talk from a favorite scholar of mine, Karen Armstrong. She wrote a book called The History of God that I read in high school that kind of put me on this path of understanding. And she also wrote a book called 12 Steps to a Compassionate Life, which talks about a very similar thing. I would suggest that for a book reading if you all wanted to do one here. But in that TED Talk, she said, look into your own heart. Discover what it is that gives you pain, and then refuse under any circumstances whatsoever to inflict that pain onto anybody else. Jesus said to love our enemy. That enemy doesn't have to be a terrorist. It doesn't have to be someone from an opposing political party. It doesn't have to be someone who did you wrong. If you aren't careful, it can be the person you see in the mirror every morning. I'm going to close with a part of a prayer from a favorite author of mine, Don Miguel Ruiz. Let us pray. Today, Creator of the universe, we ask that you help us to accept ourselves just the way we are, without judgment. Help us to accept our mind the way it is, with all our emotions, our hopes and dreams, our personality, our unique way of being. Help us to accept our body just the way it is, with all its beauty and perfection. Let the love we have for ourselves be so strong that we never again reject ourselves or sabotage our happiness, freedom, and love. From now on, let every action, every reaction, every thought, every emotion be based on love. Help us, God, to increase our self-love until the entire dream of our life is transformed. From fear and drama to love and joy. Let the power of our self-love be strong enough to break all the lies we were programmed to believe. All the lies that tell us we are not good enough, or strong enough, or intelligent enough, that we cannot make it. Let the power of our self-love be so strong that we no longer need to live our life according to other people's opinions. With our self-love, let us no longer be afraid to face responsibility in our life, or face any problems and resolve them as they arise. Whatever we want to accomplish, let it be done with the power of love, the power you have instilled within us.